Rob Dibble Show, Ben Darnell and your afternoon tribe. Now joining us on the hotline is UConn great, WNBA star, and now Celtics front office. I wouldn't even say scout, evaluator, part of player development, Ashley Battle. How are you today?
Hi, Ash.
I'm doing quite well. How are you guys?
Good. So what'd you think of your team's performance against those Toronto Raptors last night?
Raptors played well. You know, that's kind of what happens when you beat a team by 55 previously. They come out ready to play.
Really?
So it was a revenge game.
Do NBA teams get mad about getting smoked that bad? Like, they really do? Like, how dare they?
Who wants to lose like that?
Well, that's good to know.
I don't know.
Sometimes it feels like your NBA friends, they pick and choose games they want to play. Is that not true?
I mean, I don't play in the NBA, but I don't know. Like maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I feel like when you play a team and they beat you pretty badly the previous time, like you want to do well. And I think the Raptors, they've had some injuries, early on in the season, and they're a better team than what people think they are.
So they're the best 10-win team you've seen.
Probably.
They're a better team.
Okay.
They're a better team than what people think they are.
I love how Peyton Pritchard's really developed into I wouldn't say a go-to guy. If I got Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum on the court, I'm going to pass to them first. But, man, this guy, you were talking about him years ago when you guys drafted him. He went from the Red Claws, kind of red-clawed his way into this lineup. He's becoming one of the better three-point shooters, if not one of the best three-point shooters in the league. How has he developed into such a reliable resource there on the outside and the perimeter for the Boston Celtics?
His work ethic is unreal. I mean, he's always in the gym, always trying to get better. And, I think that's what he's doing right now is just, what we've been seeing from him the last couple of years, getting better every day.
As far as the Celtics being the defending champs now, I don't want to say complacency, but what else do they have to prove other than winning another championship where people were doubting them before, they can't win the big game? Now that they've done all of that, it just kind of seems not that they're on cruise control, but people want a piece of them. Do they still want a piece of everybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in the locker room, so I really can't speak for them. But as somebody who's kind of watching like you guys are as well, like, yeah, I think the competitiveness is still there, and we want to win. That's the ultimate goal.
The one thing I know you keep up with is all the UConners that are running around NBA, and I did have conversations with you about this guy when he got into the league at the age of 23, and maybe that's what held him back. And I'm just wondering from you, like, what keeps guys off the court and getting minutes? I'm talking about Tyrese Martin, who's now found himself as a starter with the Nets. And by the way, don't look at last night. Forget about last night. Horrible game.
That's how I feel about the Celtics game. Like, why are we looking at last night?
Right, we're done with last night. We're done with that game.
Look at last night.
But Tyrese, man, every time I watch him, he is getting rebounds. He is making plays. He's coming off the bench for the most part and just being the only guy that's out there hustling at all fronts. You were saying this when he got into the league. I know you were talking to your Celtics people are sick of you talking about UConn people. But, man, he's not the only one. Sonogo, I think about all the time, still clawing his way to try to get minutes. Tristan Newton, I feel, is in that void right now because he's a little bit older than some of these earlier draft picks. Cam's kind of hurt, and Steph and Donovan are off and running. They're high draft picks. But those guys like Tyrese, Tristan, Sonogo, end of the second round, is it more about where they're drafted and that weight is a little bit heavier than their actual output on the court? What is it about these guys in particular, just people in the NBA that we see and they're playing, they're really good? Why don't they get minutes?
Let's talk about Tyrese for a little bit. Like, I think, Tyrese, he's not like this, player that what he does on the court, you're like it shows overwhelmingly with your eyes,
right,
so to speak. Like, he's the type of player that when you get done and you look at the box score, it's like he had 10 points, he had 7 rebounds, he did like a little bit of everything. And I think, what he does is definitely he makes winning plays. and he does winning things that can help a team win, and you see that in Brooklyn right now. And for Sanogo, it's the same thing. Like he's not the biggest center. He doesn't really step back, and he's not really shooting outside of the paint that much, but he grabs like every rebound.
Yeah.
So I think, it comes down to what the teams value and what do they want from their players. But a lot of things that UConn guys do is it's not sexy. You know what I mean? They're not going to break you down one-on-one. They're not going to, they're team basketball players, and they try to win and try to do things the right way.
Talking to Ashley Battle, Celtics front office. Ben and I were just talking about this. How have the pregame practices changed for the NBA players, even WNBA players? I mean, between Boston and Toronto last night, 83s were shot. I saw at one point Porzingis stepped over half court, took 1 foot, and he scored from the logo.
Bam.
That's not the way they played 30, 40 years ago, even 20 years ago. So how have the practices changed, and how do they prepare for the games a little bit differently even today than maybe 5 years ago?
I think preparation and everything is still the same. Like, I think everybody's still very detailed oriented, and they know the execution and the plans that they want to execute during the games. I think all that stuff is the same. I think, the biggest thing that's really changed from, me playing into now has been the influx of analytics and how that's really taken over a lot in sports. And if you talk to the analytics guy, they'll be like, hey, 3 is worth more than a 2. You know what I mean? So but at the same time, I think there's a balance between, shooting 83s in a game between the two teams and making plays and getting to your spots. So you see a combination of that. Like, I think, one of the things about like the 15 Warriors, for example, especially like when they had KD on their team, everyone was so enamored with the amount of threes and that they took and that they made, but they also shot a lot of mid-range shots. Like, no one ever really talked about the amount of mid-range shots that all those guys took, KD, Clay, and Steph. And there's people who still take those shots, and there's people who can. It's pretty interesting because, in my opinion, I'm not quite sure, all teams have the personnel to shoot a lot of threes. That's probably why you're seeing like a lot of games where there's a bunch of misses. I think I saw like a Chicago game. Maybe Chicago and the Hornets. There was like 60 misses.
Yes.
Between the two of them.
Sometimes you get hot. You guys know how it is. Like, sometimes you get hot, sometimes you don't.
But I mean, what I was getting at was like, when you were practicing, were you taking more shots near the paint, or were you taking more shots behind the arc, prepping for a game?
Well, I mean, I knew my strengths, so like my strengths were 2-dribble pull-up game and getting to the basket and hitting open threes. So I would practice all of those things, and I knew where my shots would come from, corner threes and on the wings. So I would try to do the things that would keep me on the court, and that's hitting open corner threes and, hitting pull-up shots in the mid-range. So a lot of teams don't really shoot that mid-range game anymore. If you see the shot charts on a lot of teams, it's a lot of stuff in the paint and a lot of stuff outside of the arc. But there's a whole game that could be played in the mid-range, and you'll see, like, once the playoffs start and you'll see the grinding of the game, you'll see more mid-post and post-up for sure.
I just saw an article. I was watching the Grizzlies San Antonio game last night. Saw an article about how the Grizzlies lead the league in mid-range jumpers, and a lot like you're saying, like they just don't possess some of the guys that, like the Boston Celtics, lead the league in more threes than twos, and they possess some of those guys on the outside. Big game tonight. Cleveland, Oklahoma City, both teams on top of the pile in their respected conferences. What are those teams doing? How do they do it? What's their secret this year and how they're winning so many games?
I mean, they play really hard. Both teams play really hard, play with pace. Shea is unbelievable player, and they have good shooting and good. He plays at such, like, his change of pace is so good, and how he can just slither through defenders and get to the basket. And he has a counter to everything, and he's so low to the ground. So you'll see him, and he shoots a ton of mid-range jump shots as well.
Right.
So you'll see him, and now he's starting to shoot pull-up threes. So, I mean, just look out because he's unreal. But he'll get to a spot, and if you cut him off, he has a counter to that. And I think, they should be on TV more because they're really fun to watch.
Yeah. Talking to Ashley Battle from the Boston Celtics, UConn great. Wanted to switch gears to the UConn women, and Paige Beckers just came back after she got injured, kind of banged up her knee and her ankle. Playing St. John's, didn't seem like there was a lot of competition there. How much does that affect not just UConn, but some of these stronger teams in the country when you're playing a team and you don't want to play down at their level, but you kind of get into they're not making a lot of shots. It's kind of hard to run your offense, stuff like that when you're up 30. What are games like when you're up with like 10 minutes to go and now they put in the second team? How do you get better for teams, especially UConn coming up? You're going to have a lot tougher competition coming down the stretch.
Yeah, there's never not an opportunity to learn in basketball, especially during those types of periods. I mean, you guys know UConn is always trying to compete for a national championship, so everything that they do is for a national championship. And this is the time where you can maybe throw something out there, see if you like the way it's designed, how it's going to work, and just see if you can execute it. And I think you probably would have saw some of that happening last night. And I mean, when I played for Gino and CD and those guys, that's what we would do all the time. We were always like, hey, we're going to test this out and see what happens. And then maybe in the Final Four, he'll say, hey, remember that play that we ran against St. John's? And we'll be like, yeah, we do. We're going to run that right now. So there's times where you can pull stuff. You could practice some things against live competition that doesn't know what you're going to do, and then, pull it out later on.
I'm trying to learn this defense along with these freshmen. I think I do this every year, and I still can't figure out some of the responsibilities and like the tricks of the trade here. We're getting a lot of time for these freshmen, and Coach Gino in the last couple of weeks been playing a lot of full court press because he's finally got numbers like he hasn't had in the last couple of years. But what are some of those responsibilities? What are like the big rules on defense as a UConn women's player for this program?
One of the things that we would do was, you want to, if you're picking up full court, you want to turn them continuous time because it takes time off the clock, and it doesn't allow the offense to get into their sets quickly. You want to keep them on the sideline if you're pressing full court, because if you get it into the middle, you have a lot of different options. But if you keep it on the sideline, you have a second defender with the sideline. Also, if you have someone you want to force them baseline driving on the wings, because you have your help coming from the bottom side, whether it be depending on where the post player is, maybe it's the post, maybe it's the weak side guard. But when you get them in that kind of stuck in that short corner area, you have not only your defender there that's helping, coming over to help to stop them outside of the paint, but you also have the sideline or the baseline as another defender. So that's three defenders, kind of helping you. And then really just seeing the basket, the ball, your player, and your player stand between those things, the ball and your player, and you kind of have a shot at making a play.
My final one for you, Ash, is Sarah Strong is unbelievable. Your thoughts on her, just as a freshman? What's it like for a freshman under Gino and to be getting 35 minutes a game and playing as well as she does? I mean, it's kind of hard to ever sit her out of a game.
Yeah, I mean, she's unreal, and I think she comes from great pedigree from her parents, and they really took her time in developing her. And you could see all of it because she's well beyond her years, the way that she plays. And I think it's pretty cool for her because that doesn't really happen where freshmen come in and play 35 minutes. Diana didn't play 35 minutes as a freshman, not until the end of the season when Shea and Svetlana got hurt. Maybe Maya and Stewie really are like the only players that I could think of immediately that came in and had this big of an impact right away. I think that's pretty cool. I think she has a chance of being Player of the Year and for sure an All-American.
Not only do you represent the Boston Celtics, UConn women's basketball, you're the pride of Pittsburgh. Everyone loves you in Pittsburgh. What's up with the Steelers and what's up with Tomlin? Give me the Pittsburgh Steelers, State of the Union here for 2024. What did you think of the season?
Oh, man, it was tough because, on paper, like going into the season, when I saw the schedule, I was like, Murderers Row, the last 6 games. It was unreal. I think we had the Bengals twice, Cleveland twice, the Ravens twice,
right,
and you threw the Chiefs and the Eagles in there. Like that, just looking at that schedule, it was like you really had no time to kind of catch your breath. And I knew there was going to be we'd have to win a lot of games on the front end of the schedule. But I think, the quarterback situation has always been a little bit of an issue for us since not having Ben. Even in Ben's last couple of years, it's been kind of a questionable position for us. And it's crazy because we've done so well at, making the playoffs, but we just haven't gotten over the hump. And you're just like, man, if we would have stunk last year, maybe we would have got Jaden in Washington. You know what I mean? And it's been set for a quarterback position. But it's we're in a tough spot. We're kind of in the middle of the road, so we don't really get a great draft pick.
Does Tomlin stay? You still like the coach?
Yeah, I think he's going to stay. I think what the people in Pittsburgh fail to realize, if he becomes loose, he's not going to be on the market longer than a day.
Right. Take him in Chicago.
Agreed. Right now. What's next for you? Where are you going next?
Where are you headed?
I'm kind of staying local, which is nice.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't really have too much to travel outside of the tri-state, which is really nice.
There you go. You are the best. We love you, your family. So thank you so much, Ash.
Too, man.
All right.
Yep. You be well, girl.
Thank you, Ash.